Live Better Longer. I'm your host, Bill Bort. Many couples discover once they become empty nesters and the kids are no longer the common bond that binds them, that they really don't want to be married to each other anymore. They don't hate each other, they just want to do different things. My guest this week, David Anderson, CPA, is the principal of David Anderson and Associates. He specializes in forensic accounting, fraud detection and deterrence, business valuations, insolvency and reorganization, white-collar crimes, litigation support, including business, commercial, and matrimonial litigation. David is also a collaboratively trained divorce financial expert and is a member of Collaborative Law Professionals of Southeastern Pennsylvania. Welcome, David. Thanks for being my guest on Live Better Longer.
Well, thank you, Bill.
So, David, what is collaborative divorce?
Collaborative divorce is an alternative form of divorce in which the couple decides the timing and the terms of the divorce instead of leaving it to a court.
Okay.
And Pennsylvania formally codified collaborative divorce as a valid form of divorce last year. Mm-hmm. New Jersey and Delaware, it's generally allowed by the courts, it's just not in the state law.
Okay. So how does it differ from traditional divorce where, both spouses get a lawyer and the lawyers go at each other and spend a lot of the client's money?
Sure. To start with, at least one of the parties decides they don't want to be married anymore. And they may have gone through counseling, they may be separated, and in fact, usually in most divorces, the couple's already separated. Mm-hmm. But this party decides to go and contact an attorney. Mm-hmm. And then after the party contacts the attorney will file suit on behalf of that party asking for a divorce. Now, depending on the state, this can be what's called a no-fault or a fault divorce. Mm-hmm. For example, in Pennsylvania, if you want it to be a no-fault divorce, you have to have been separated for at least 2 years. Otherwise, you would have to get your spouse to agree within 90 days of the court filing to what's called a mutual no-fault divorce. Otherwise, you have to claim a valid reason mm-hmm. that the court will investigate.
Okay.
Usually then the other spouse is served with the lawsuit. That spouse goes and gets an attorney. And in a traditional divorce, an attorney is focused on meeting the specific needs of the spouse, either the one filing the lawsuit or the one who's the recipient of the lawsuit. The attorney is not concerned with the health of the family, mm-hmm. not concerned with the children so much, but in meeting the specific needs of their client. In a traditional divorce, the court will make decisions. The court, and it's either a judge or a master who's a specially trained attorney, mm-hmm. Will decide such things initially as custody of children, support, alimony, and whether or not assets of the couple are frozen during the term of the divorce. Mm-hmm. It can become quite acrimonious because, again, the attorney is not concerned with so much the happiness of the other party as in meeting the maximum desires and needs of their particular client. A typical traditional divorce ends with the court making a decision. Mm-hmm. The court will assign custody. The court will decide on child support, on alimony. The court will decide on the split up of assets. And in a traditional divorce, it may take on the average 2 to 4 years or even longer.
Oh my.
In fact, I had a case recently, the divorce still hasn't been completed even though the couple separated in mm-hmm. 2006 and filed for divorce in 2007 because there's one big retirement asset that they've been fighting about now for 13 years.
And the value of that retirement asset's probably gone up and down over that time.
Absolutely.
More up now than down.
More up than now. And we kind of determined that over the course of those 13 years, the two spouses have spent more money on lawyers and experts than the difference between what they believe each spouse should get from
And
the
nobody
retirement money.
imagined that it would cost that much and take that long,
No, not
or
at
they
all.
never would have done it.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Now, that's not to say that traditional divorce is not a good thing, because there are circumstances in which traditional divorce should be pursued. For example, if one of the spouses has been emotionally or physically abusive of the other spouse. If the two spouses have reached the point where they cannot talk to each other, they cannot work together, they have such enmity between them that they won't want to cooperate in any way, then traditional divorce is the way to go. But there's this alternative called collaborative divorce. And in a collaborative divorce, sort of as you mentioned at the very beginning of the show, if you both decide, look, we don't want to be married, we don't hate each other's guts, we don't wish the other one to suffer,
And we don't want to spend a lot of
and
money.
we don't want to spend a lot of money, then you can pursue this thing called collaborative divorce. Now, you have specially trained, collaboratively trained attorneys for each spouse, and they will usually hire a neutral, specially trained neutral financial person like myself,
Okay.
and one or more what they call coaches. And a coach is a mental health professional, a counselor that can specialize in family and or in children. And in a collaborative divorce, you work as a team as opposed to two opposing sides. The other issue of a collaborative divorce is all of this is occurring before anything is filed with any court.
So everything's getting teed up in advance. So theoretically, it's all going to just go smoothly right through the process.
That's correct. And the team works together to help the spouses decide the timing, the support options, the custody options, the split of assets for the divorce. At the very end of the collaborative process, the two collaboratively trained attorneys work together and put together a marital separation agreement that is then presented to the courts, and all the courts essentially have to do at that point is rubber stamp.
Interesting, very interesting. So the obvious then question would be, how would a couple or someone advising a couple know whether collaborative divorce is right for them or not? Again, they don't hate each other, right? But what else?
Well, obviously, the two key things that are required for a collaborative divorce to work is that you must be willing to communicate with each other, and it's got to be amicable, and you've got to be open. So, for example, if you have a spouse who has traditionally hidden income or assets from their other spouse, that's not going to be a good circumstance, because you've pledged at the very beginning of the process in writing that you're going to be completely open and communicative.
So it kind of messed things up a bit if it was discovered as the process unfolded that one of the spouses had been deceptive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It could derail the whole thing and turn it into a traditional divorce pretty quickly.
Oh, really? And here's the other thing that happens. In a collaborative divorce, you sign what's called a participation agreement. And each of the collaboratively trained attorneys signs it, the collaboratively trained financial person signs it, the collaboratively trained coaches sign it. And one of the key provisions is that if this whole process falls apart, none of these professionals can be used again in the divorce process.
Interesting.
So if you go through, let's say you go 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through a collaborative divorce process and it doesn't work out, you got to start all over again.
So there's an incentive, if people have the presence of mind to calm down, take a few deep breaths, to realize that if they don't get back on track and continue with what was agreed to originally, it could cost them dearly.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a few other things. For example, in a traditional divorce, the proceedings can become public, or can be, or certain aspects of the proceedings can be accessed by the public. So if you have certain financial information, certain other personal information you don't want out there, that could potentially get out there. In a collaborative divorce, unless something is detailed in the marital settlement agreement, no one knows. Okay, so if the couple is having problems, if there's, whatever it is, if there's particular financial issues you don't want out there, a collaborative divorce will help protect against that getting out in public.
So you mentioned mediation. How does a collaborative divorce differ from a mediated divorce?
Okay. In a mediated divorce, a specially trained mediator, which is usually an attorney, but it could be someone else, helps to guide the couple through a process that's sort of similar to collaborative divorce. It happens outside of the courts, and depending on the type of mediator you're dealing with, either the couple themselves will reach all the decisions, or the mediator will reach decisions on behalf of the couple, or some combination of the
So
three.
generally with a mediated divorce, there aren't two attorneys involved.
Well, this is the interesting thing. The mediator recommends that you get an attorney involved, but you don't have to.
Well, is that more for a CYA?
It's really to protect the interest of the particular spouse,
Okay.
because the spouses don't necessarily know all the legal ramifications of
Gotcha.
certain things.
Okay. So there may be some things that come up in discussion with the mediator that the spouses need some counsel over, and the mediator can't provide one spouse counsel because they're working for both of them, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. So this is all very interesting. We're going to need to take a brief break right now, though, for a word from our sponsors. This is Bill Borton. I'll be back with more from my guest, David Anderson, in a moment. Welcome back to Live Better Longer. I'm your host, Bill Borton, here with David Anderson, CPA of David Anderson and Associates. So David, before the break, we were talking about collaborative divorce. So it sounds like it's the way to go when couples, don't want to make a career out of it. But what downsides are there to collaborative divorce?
Well, there's a couple, Bill. The first, and I did allude to this earlier, is that if the process breaks down, you've got to start all over again to go through a traditional divorce.
That could be really tough.
And that could be tough. If you have, and one of the reasons that we see the process break down, because it does happen from time to time, is where one member of the couple tries to hide something from everyone. The idea in a collaborative divorce is you're supposed to be open. So if you hide something in a collaborative divorce, you don't have, and I'm not suggesting people do this, but you don't have the same consequences of trying to hide something in a traditional divorce in which a court can sanction you. Another aspect of collaborative divorce that can be negative is that in a traditional divorce, either the date of separation or the date that you file for the divorce is the controlling date for valuing assets, for looking at income. In a collaborative divorce, the couple usually sets that date. So it could end up being to the detriment of one or the other of the couple by having a much later date or a much earlier date than the courts would determine.
I see. So when I introduced you, David, I mentioned that you are a member of the Collaborative Law Professionals of Southeastern Pennsylvania. And you also mentioned during our discussion that there's a number of different professionals, financial experts, social workers, and people. Tell me about the association and how that works.
Okay. We are a group of professionals in the 5-county area around Philadelphia. So it's
Okay.
Philadelphia, Bucks, Montgomery, Delaware, and Chester counties. There are collaboratively trained attorneys, collaboratively trained financial professionals, CPAs like myself, people who are financial planning experts, such as yourself. We have some mortgage and financing experts. And then we also have collaboratively trained mental health professionals,
Okay.
people that specialize in families and in children. If you go to our website, and I think a little bit later I'll give the web site
Sure.
information, you can find a list of these professionals, you can find their biographies, and typically in a collaborative divorce, you start out by contacting a collaborative attorney.
And then that individual helps assemble the rest of the team.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So you mentioned contact information. If people are interested in learning about collaborative divorce, because I never really knew about it before I met you, what's the best way to get in touch with you, David?
Okay. On the screen, you'll see at the bottom gocollaborative.pa.com.
Okay.
That is the website for our group. You can also contact me via my website, via my email address, or via my phone.
Okay.
And any of these, I can put you in touch with the attorneys if necessary. I can discuss issues with people as necessary.
Good. It's a good first place to start, is getting in touch with you.
Absolutely.
So David, I know when I introduced you, there's a whole lot of other things that you do, and you've had a long and varied career. What are some of the other ways that you serve people?
One of my key areas is as a forensic accountant.
Okay.
So, and I get involved in several different areas as a forensic accountant. For example, if a company suspects that they've been the victim of fraud, or if an individual. For example, I do a lot of work with estates and trusts where a beneficiary feels that someone is taking advantage of the other beneficiaries. If companies are having some type of a dispute, it could be a contract dispute, it could be over royalties, it could be over any number of issues, I get involved as a forensic accountant. And I also testify in court as an expert witness
Okay.
in those cases. Another area I'm involved in is business valuations. So people that are looking to find out what their company's worth, or looking to acquire a company and want to know what the company is worth. I get involved with a lot of situations in which one generation is transitioning ownership of a privately held business to another generation. And they need to know the value of the business in order for gift tax purposes. Or if someone has died and they have a business.
Or I guess we're talking about divorce. If you're going to have a business divorce,
Absolutely.
you're going to have to value the business.
Yeah. So I get involved from that standpoint.
So do you also testify in court regularly as an expert witness?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Although I will tell you that, and most people don't know this, almost all civil cases settle before they go to court. So I do testify, but I would say 95+% of the time that I've been involved as an expert, the cases have settled before I need to testify.
So during a deposition, it becomes apparent that they've got the hired gun here that's going to prevent them from winning the case, so you settle.
Very possibly, yes.
Good. So what else do you do?
One of the other things I do is called a CFO for hire. There are small and medium-sized businesses that may temporarily be without a controller or a CFO, or may need someone to step in and help them. So for example, a small business that's getting ready for sale may need someone to come in and help them get their finances in order, get their
Okay.
accounting in order. So I have done CFO for hire either on a consulting basis or on a regular basis for a period of time, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, kind of situation.
So can you think of anything else?
Those are the primary areas, the three primary areas that I work in. I am a CPA, but I don't do audits. I try and stay away from the traditional CPA activities.
Yeah, the boring stuff. You like doing the fun stuff.
You're right.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so I've really enjoyed having you on the show, David, and learning about collaborative divorce, both from our earlier discussions and the show today. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that may decide not to stay in an unhappy marriage. And now there's a way to get there from here without it costing a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of angst. And I think the adult children of a couple that are deciding to divorce may be a little less traumatized as a result as well. So thank you so much for being on the show, David.
Okay, appreciate
And
it.
for our viewers out there, this is Bill Borton here with David Anderson. I will see you next Tuesday at 11 for another installment of Live Better Longer on RVN TV. Have a great week.